I'm going to be starting a new sermon series today called Main Ingredients. What are the main ingredients of the Christian faith? And have you ever been fooled in a YouTube video or you're scrolling through social media and you see a picture, you see an ad, you see some video of someone, someone like falling and tripping and then running into stuff, and you keep scrolling, and then you come across a video that has this meal. It's like a skillet, and it's like sizzling, and it looks delicious. And it starts lying to you. It's like, oh, easy, simple, under 5 minutes. You know, like has all these things that draw you in and go, ooh, I am just one refrigerator door opening up away from eating this. Yeah, have you done this? And so you go, ooh, what is this meal? And they start to cook it right in front of you. The skillet disappears, and then there's a bowl, and they're like, oh, and pops 3 ingredients, boop, 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 and they're like, yeah, it's just these things. And then you put those in the bowl, and you stir it, and then 5 more ingredients appears. Doop, 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 doop. You have to chop these up and put these in, put in your pepper, put in your salt, pour in some milk, do some eggs, doing some orange juice. You're like, wait, what did they just put in there? And they keep putting in more, and then they take all that and they put it in the refrigerator. Store overnight. And as they're doing that, then they start doing more, and you're like, wait a second, I'm not going to do this. They're tricking me right now. They're lying to me. Have you been there? And you're like halfway through the video, and you're exhausted. You're like, I got 6 kids. I don't have time to put together this meal. What? They tricked me. They told me it was going to be easy and simple, and it wasn't. And you scroll on like you're frustrated. I just wasted a whole 73 seconds of my life. Urgh. Am I the only one that's done this? Oh, I hate those videos, and they always get me. I always get suckered into them. I think we do this to new Christians. I think that a new person comes in and they sit down and we're like, hey, it's easy to be a Christian. All you have to do is this. You just need to accept him right now. You just need to come up, give your life to him, repent, we'll dunk you, you'll receive the Holy Spirit, and you're good to go. And they're like, whoa, I want to be a part of that. And so they dive in, and then they're all ready, and then we're saying, now there's a few more rules we didn't tell you about. You have to be here every single Sunday. They're like, but I work every other Sunday. Well, then you need to feel really guilty about it. You need to go, oh, I work, so I need to feel really guilty about it. And you need to be here Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, Tuesday morning. You need to be here at all the events, every youth event, every this event. You need to be here for the missions. In fact, just give us your calendar. And if you don't, you need to feel really guilty about it, because you're not really on fire for Jesus. They're like, okay, here's my life. Here you go, okay. Is there anything else? I'm like, well, yes. We also ought to talk to you about what it means to live out this Christian life. I'm like, oh, I think I know most of this. Most of them do. They're like, I know I'm not supposed to lie or steal. And they're like, well, I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about all the other rules that exist in American culture that the Bible doesn't talk about and Jesus doesn't care about, but we care about it here. They're like, well, like what? Like, well, like we don't want you to have a tattoo. What? The Bible says that? No, the Bible, there's a verse that sometimes we'll take out of context from the Old Testament just to make ourselves feel better, but we don't want you to have a tattoo. But what if I already have one? Then we want you to feel really guilty about it for the rest of your life. Okay, anything else? Yeah, we really don't want you to drink, ever. Like, no alcohol? Can I have NyQuil? No, nothing. No alcohol at all. But didn't Jesus turn water into wine? That was Jesus. Today, we don't even use alcohol when we take communion. We're using grape juice because in America, all the Christians are a bunch of prudes, right? So no alcohol at all. I'm like, okay, and no smoking, and no tobacco, and we also don't want you to play cards. We don't want you to watch rated R movies. We don't want you to dance if it's too sensual. And pretty soon, this new person starts realizing they can't do all this. And this Christian life becomes a burden for them. And they just start scooching towards the door. Well, it's been nice knowing you guys. And they're gone. And we don't know why. It's because it was we just kept piling on stuff. And we weren't upfront with what we were going to expect from them. Let me tell you something. What are the main ingredients of the Christian faith? When it comes to what you and I believe, can we just say, this is what it means. This is how a Christian acts. Can we say that simply so that we all know and that we all understand it? Instead of it being 5,000 things, can we sum it up? We're going to sum it up. How a Christian should act, how a Christian should feel, and how a Christian should think. So that's my message today. I'm going to sum up the main ingredients of a follower of Jesus Christ. And we're going to go back and look at from the prophet Micah, chapter 6, when Micah explains the heartbeat of a follower of God. Micah chapter 6, verse 6 says, "With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams? With 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you?" And here it is. "To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." There's another passage in the New Testament where Jesus kind of summed up all the law of the prophets. They said, hey, there's all this stuff here. Can you kind of sum it up so we know the heartbeat, the main ingredients? And that's when Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Micah does the same thing and almost says the same words. He just uses a little bit different focus, and he zeroes us in even more. And he says, this is what it's all about. And if you do this, and if you feel this, and if you think this, you're on the right path. Let's just talk about the main ingredients here. And so let's look at the first one. How should a Christian act? What should you do? And Micah, in this, well, should I give you 10,000 rivers of olive oil? No. Act justly. What does that mean? Act just. When I hear justice, I think of punishment. It's like, guilty, boom, that's justice. But justice is about making life fair. It's about balancing it out. So that you don't have someone that's greatly at a disadvantage, who's been taken advantage of and who's been beaten down. And as believers, we walk through this life with a sense of justice, looking for those who are at a disadvantage. And this is our activity. This is what we do. Is we look for them, we find them, and we build them up, and we make them strong, and we encourage them, and we carry them on our backs, and we get them through. That's what it means to be a believer. In ministry, I have had hundreds, if not thousands, of people ask me for help all the time. 25 years in ministry, oh man, it started. People coming over saying, hey, buddy, and I tell you, I have a whole list of things people have asked for. I mean, I've had people ask for money for food. I've had people ask me for money for drugs. I've had people ask me for money for rent and utilities. I've had someone ask me for money for their dog, for dog food. People ask money for car repairs. A lot of people that needed a ride somewhere. And so often, usually it comes with this big story. Hey, buddy, I need some help, because, let's see, my cousin, I was coming here today, and I was going to be able to work, but then fell through, and my sister's funeral is in 2 days, but I can't make it there unless I get this over here, and I needed it. And it's like the story is so overwhelming, and oftentimes you just want to say, here is money. God, stop talking. I will give it to you just to go away. Now, this is me. And I don't mean to ruffle any feathers. This is just something I've acknowledged and that I've noticed in my life. It seems that the people that usually are asking for help are not the ones that are usually needing it the most, are the ones that are the most grateful. It's usually, in my experience, been those that are not asking for it that typically need it the most, and we pass right by them and don't notice them. That's been I don't know, maybe your experience is different, but my experience is I have to really keep my eyes open to find people to help and to go to them, because the ones I want to help the most, the ones that are at the greatest disadvantage, are usually not the ones who are standing there asking for it. Now, for me, I put people, there's 4 categories of individuals that I believe that I'm responsible for. And I need to find these people in Dexter. I need to find these people. I need to help them. My radar is open for them. Number 1 is children, especially orphans, foster kids, those who are growing up in broken homes, those that are growing up in poor situations, those that need more guidance and more love. Those are the ones, because they're at a disadvantage. They cannot defend themselves. They can't stand up, and they're not going to come and ask for help. So I have to keep my eyes open and go, where are they? Where are those little ones? When I was convicted the most about this was several years ago. I was going into a Target. I was living in Columbus, Ohio, and it was an area where we had a lot of people asking for money all the time. So I was used to either helping or not. I was used to that world. And I'm passing by a young lady who was probably in her early 20s, maybe late teens. And I'm passing by this young girl who says, "Hey, you don't have any money, do you? I need to get back to my dorm." And I went, I don't have any cash on me. I'm sorry. And she went, oh, okay, that's okay. And I went into Target. And as I'm walking through the store, I start thinking, wait a second. I'm walking into Target to buy something. I mean, I don't have any cash on me, but I've got something. I've got a car. I drove here. Who is that young girl? Who's her father? Is she going to get home safe? And I started walking through Target, and I started to own it. And as I'm walking through, I started going, I can't just dismiss her. She's a young lady. She needs help getting home. This was not the normal person asking for help. And I quickly bought what I was going to buy, and I went out into the parking lot, and I couldn't find her. I thought, did she make it home safe? I don't know, but I blew it. I blew it that day, because our job as followers of Jesus Christ is to notice children and to act justly. You don't have a father? I'll be your father. You don't have wisdom? I'll give you wisdom. You need encouragement? I'll give you encouragement. We look for those who are at a disadvantage, especially those who are young, and we pick them up. That's one that's on my radar. Number 2, anyone who's elderly, especially widows. Especially widows. We got to always have our radar out. They're not the ones asking for help, and yet they're at a disadvantage. They're the ones that need help mowing their yard and figuring out how they're going to get their groceries from the grocery store. If you have a widow living on your street, you need to know her name. You need to know who mows her yard. You need to know how she gets her groceries. You need to get to know her and check in on her, because that's what we do. We act justly. This is our behavior as Christians. At my last church, there were two ladies that were our greeters at one of our doors. Both turned over 100 while they were greeters while I was there. So we had 3 doors to enter the church building. If you went into one door, you'd been greeted by 2 ladies every Sunday over 100 years old, welcoming you to the church. So if you can't serve at the church, no one can, right? I mean, this is like awesome. Well, when she was a little younger, when Louise was only 97 years old, she was only 97, her apartment building caught on fire. A fireman came to her door and pounded on her door, and she came and opened it. He said, "Ma'am, the building's on fire. We need to evacuate everyone out of the building." She said, "Oh." He said, "Well, I'm probably not going to be able to make it. It's going to take too long, so I don't know what I'm going to do." He said, "What? No, I'll help you out of the building." She's like, "Well, I don't." She said, No. It's like he had to talk her into letting me help save your life. And he talked her to go over to the stairs. And then he turned, and she put both of her arms over his shoulders, and he picked her up, and he walked down 3 flights of stairs to save her life. That's what we need to do with anyone who's older, anyone who's elderly, that you notice. That's what being a believer and follower of Jesus Christ is. This is our action. We care for those who are at a disadvantage. Find someone who's older, put them on your back, and carry them. Number 3, anyone who's disabled. Anyone who is disabled. And isn't that what Jesus did like all the time? Jesus spent so much time with those who are disabled. And he, like 80% of his miracles, it seems, are healing people who were disabled. It's like, you're lame? No, you're not. You're healed. You're blind? No, you're not. Healed. Leprosy? Cleansed. Withered hand? Stretched out. Healed. Oh, I felt like I was making fun of someone there. Yeah, we're healing and being around those who are disabled. What we're doing is we're coming into their life to give them strength, encouragement, and love. And number 4, anyone who has a true emergency in their life. Whatever that emergency is, we're there for you. I'm not talking about someone whose their entire life is an emergency. I'm talking about someone who has a true emergency. A disaster came that they weren't expecting. And of course, the followers of Jesus Christ are going to be there for you if you have a true emergency. We need to notice. And I'll tell you, it's hard sometimes when there's an emergency. It's sometimes scary to go into it. It's scary because we go, I don't know what we're going to expect. I don't know what I'm going to say. Listen, 16 years ago today was when my son died. I don't remember what anyone said, but I do remember who was there. I remember who showed up, and I even remember who didn't show up. I remember the funeral, and I remember everyone who came in, and I remember everyone who didn't. You don't have to be all-knowing. You don't have to be able to say the right thing. You just have to go and show up. And so those are the 4. I say whenever we see children, especially orphans, when we see the elderly, especially widows, when we see someone who's disabled, and anytime there's an emergency, And anytime there's an emergency, we just drop everything and go. Now, that's what we're supposed to do. That's the first main ingredient. Then Micah said, now here's how you're supposed to feel. Does that seem weird to you? There's something I want you to love. But what if my heart isn't there? In America, we have this whole belief about love, that we're swept away with our love. Oh, I fell in love with this person, whether it's the person I should be in love with or not. Oh no, Dad, I'm sorry. I fell in love with a big jerk. He's going to beat me now forever. I'm sorry. I just love him. Yeah, love's not like that. You can channel love. And God says there's something I want you to love. A characteristic. But Dad, I'm sorry. I fell in love with murder. I love murder, Dad. I'm sorry. No, I was hoping you'd fall in love with a good characteristic. No. I want you to love mercy. I want you to take your heart and aim it towards that Hebrew word for mercy. It's the same word for kindness. Aim your heart towards being kind and love it. Love when someone offers another person mercy and ooh and ah over it. Love whenever you are able to show kindness to someone, especially if the person doesn't deserve it. My mother told me whenever I was a kid that all people are the same everywhere you go, because you always take yourself with you. You take your attitudes with you. So if you look out and you see a bunch of stubborn people that are rude to you, you go to another town, you'll look out and you see a bunch of stubborn people that are rude to you. If you look around and you see a bunch of happy people, you move to a new town, you'll see a bunch of happy people because it's your attitude. I thought that was true. Has anyone been taught that as a kid? People are the same everywhere you go? It's a lie. It's not true. I've now been places. People aren't nice everywhere you go. There's some places that are nicer than others. There's some places you go and people are rude. And some places you go and people are kind of friendly. And there's some places you go and it seems like everyone's friendly and then they stab you in the back afterwards. People are not the same everywhere you go. Your attitude has a big part of it, but people are different. And I'll tell you, Southeast Missouri, I love Southeast Missouri, but everyone here is the rudest drivers ever. Right? The rudest drivers. It's like, you can't be patient for me. It's like, honk, honk, get out of my way. And in Columbus, everyone was like too polite that it was annoying, where they'd come like to a stop on the interstate to let someone get through. It's like, just go! It's like, here it's like the opposite. We're going to push them over. You get off my side of the road. Yeah, people are not necessarily the same everywhere you go, but wherever you go, something that everyone needs is kindness. Kindness speaks every language. Kindness can be seen and understood by everyone. And this is a world that's desperate for more kindness. I'd ask you to fall in love with being kind. This is one of those sum it all up verses. If you truly fall in love with kindness, there's all these other commands that become easy. Don't lie, don't steal, don't commit adultery, honor your father and mother. It becomes easier because you fell in love with being kind. I think we just had one of the greatest examples of kindness shown in our country by a young 18-year-old whose brother was shot dead by a police officer. She went into the wrong house. She thought it was her apartment. And she shot a man unarmed, just a young kid. This 18-year-old boy now comes to the trial of this woman, this cop that shot his brother. And he said the most beautiful words. He said, I wasn't planning to say this in front of my family and friends here today, but I truly want the best for you. In fact, I wish that you wouldn't have to go to jail at all. And I truly want the best for you. And then he turned to the judge. Did you see that video? He turned to the judge and said, can I give her a hug? A hug? She shot his brother. He said, "Can I give her a hug?" What do you think that hug meant for that young woman who's tortured for what she did in taking an innocent life? To have that young 18-year-old offer her forgiveness and to give her a hug. What did he whisper in her ear, do you think? What was that embrace like? That is beautiful. And those are the type of stories that ought to thrill us as followers of Jesus Christ. We ought to be in love with kindness, in love with mercy, especially when the person doesn't even deserve it. That's how we're supposed to act. That's how we're supposed to feel. And this is what we're supposed to think. I want you to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. The way that we should think is we ought to think about ourselves as nothing more than mortals who have a lot to learn. And realize that there is a God who is greater and more powerful than us. Every heretic has something in common. Every false teacher shares a character trait. Every true false teacher is prideful, unwilling to listen to other people's perspectives and to go wherever truth takes you. I've spent a lot of time in my life talking to people of the same faith and of different faiths. And when someone has something that they strongly believe and it's not in tune with sound doctrine, Paul wrote to Timothy, anyone who does not agree to sound doctrine is conceited. And it's true. Because it's you saying, I'm not willing to listen to what reality might say. I'm just going to stick to my guns. This is what I believe. As followers of Jesus, we open our mind and say, okay, maybe I could be wrong. Let's discuss it. Let's go wherever the truth takes us. Let's have a conversation here and let's grow from each other. I used to have a Bible before I moved to my phone where I'd written a lot in the column, in the side, and I'd written in the margin what a passage meant. And then one day I crossed that out and I wrote underneath it what I really meant. And then I crossed that out and I wrote underneath that what I think it meant. And then I just put question marks around it. It was just this one passage where I'm going, no, maybe it's this. Maybe it's this. And as followers of Christ, God wants us to always be humble and to go, I'm still learning here. I'm still growing. If I'm wrong, let's have a conversation. Let's learn together. And that is the type of attitude that will help me embrace truth. When I come to God and say, okay, I may have my preconceived ideas about what I want to believe, but I'm willing right now to change everything I believe and believe what I'm supposed to. My ears are open. Teach me. Speak to me. And I'll listen. As a Christian, here's the main ingredients. If you're worried about 50,000 things in the Christian faith, we'll boil it down for you. Act justly. Love mercy. And walk humbly with God.